I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you be with us tonight as we make decisions for the good and the welfare of the city of Goddard. In your name we pray.
All right, this is item C, approval of agenda. So this is to approve the agenda for April 14th, 2025, regular planning commission meeting.
I'll move to approve the agenda for April 14, 2025, regular planning commission meeting. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. This is item D, citizens' comments. So at this point, we would allow citizens to comment on anything they deem necessary. Citizens allowed 3 minutes. You must state your first and last name, write it down here, and your address. You're limited to 3 minutes. I will let you know when 3 minutes have elapsed. We will, if you're here for a zoning case, there will be a public hearing on that zoning case. You can speak at that time, but if you want to speak now on any other agenda item, then Mr. Chair, you can open up citizens' comments.
All right, we'll open up citizens' comments.
Very good.
Well, I won't be bashful. I'll come up. There's two agendas tonight. One is at Maple and 183rd Street about changing that to do duplexes. You know, and they come out and they said, well, they're gonna do it as a retirement committee, 55 and over. Well, that's illegal because they can't do that. That's discrimination. So, you know, when he was at the city council meeting, he talked about that they were gonna do 1,100 square feet to 2,000 square feet. So my problem is that most of it's gonna be at the 1,100, which is gonna be the cheaper side, and it's gonna make everything trashy. But we've got a whole bunch of duplexes going in. Because you have another one tonight at 199th and Maple, and they're gonna do 9 twin homes, I think it's 24 duplexes and 55 single homes. How many duplexes are we gonna build in Goddard? That I know of, the last I saw, there was 800 duplexes to be built or are in the process of being built right now. So if you look at the stuff that's going on 167th, which is Wichita, which is close to our area, those things are dinky. They're really little. You know, the county has raised my property $220,000 in 4 years. And so we're gonna start diminishing the value of properties by just all the duplexes that we're putting in. Because the duplexes aren't gonna be the value of a single dwelling home, depending upon the sizes of them. You know, and so I know everybody's upset with the county with what they've done, and, you know, as far as mine, I've protested it, because $220,000 in 4 years, I mean, holy crap, what's it gonna be in 10 years? You know, they're gonna make it to where we can't afford to live in our own homes. You know, that's not you guys' problem, but that's my problem. But so here we are, we're gonna fill the town full of duplexes, and then all of a sudden, we're not gonna have valuable homes in this town anymore. Or what we do have is gonna be run into the ground. So that's my concern and my complaint. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I came to speak for my neighbor, so I can give you my name and my address, but I'm here for another neighbor. What would you prefer?
Your name and address, please.
Okay. My name is Candace Sipple, and my address is 2016 North Clearstone in Goddard, Kansas. And my neighbor couldn't be here. He was one that got a letter for the duplexes at 183rd and Maple. And so he just wrote a quick note that he wanted me to share. He's out on business. He said he was at a previous city meeting. He was told there would be no more duplexes in Goddard for 5 years. He said he believes the land should be for single-family homes as it is currently zoned and was when he purchased his land. He said, these duplexes are going in my backyard, and these developers do not live here and see this every day like I do. That's his statement.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tim Hayward. My address is 1805 East Elkridge Avenue in Goddard. I live next door to the gentleman that Candace just spoke about. I feel exactly the same way. My backyard will look straight into all of these duplexes. And the other issue I'm having is I challenge anyone to try and go down Maple and 167th on a school morning or a school afternoon. The infrastructure isn't in that area for you to put extra housing in there at a duplex rate. That's my concern.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else this time? Mr. Chair, at this point, seeing no one else, we may close citizens' comments.
All right, we'll close citizens' comments.
Very good. We're going to move on to E, this is consent agenda. So this is to approve the minutes from the March 10th, 2025 regular planning commission meeting. We had a rezoning case, number zone 25-1. We had the pre-plat for Willows Ridge Development. We had the final plat for Willows Ridge Development and a project development update.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 10th, 2025.
I will second.
Can I just ask you spell my name correctly in those minutes?
Did you write down your name? Did you come up and speak?
No.
He did, yes.
Last time. Sorry. You didn't spell my name.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So, no.
Call the vote.
Okay.
P is silent.
We will add a modification to the minutes of the previous, so Mr. Chair, if you can ask the planning commission to make that motion with a modification to the minutes from the previous meeting to include a correction to the last name of Mr. Paul Jonas.
I will make that motion to change the minutes to reflect the proper name of the gentleman that spoke.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. This is item F, Board of Zoning Appeals. F1, rezoning from Marsh Island Development, Villas at TRC, case number zone 25-2 actually. MKC Engineering has submitted an application to rezone around 45 plus acres on northeast corner of 183rd Maple from R1 single family residential to R4 high density residential. It was then presented on March 10th before the Planning Commission. After some deliberation, it was voted 3-3 on a split vote, which constitutes a no vote, and went before the City Council on March 17th, 2025. And after some deliberation, it was voted no on a 3-1 vote, denying the rezoning request for case number zone 25-1. On March 18th, 2025, the developer resubmitted another application for a rezoning request to rezone the property to R2 instead of R4. The developer also met with members of the Planning Commission and City Council on Wednesday, April 2nd, at the Presswood Development in Bel Air to showcase its plan for the area of Goddard. Planning Commission is considering rezoning the property to R2 two-family residential. Notices were sent out to the public per state law and republished in the city newspaper. Final consideration will be before the City Council on April 22nd at 12 p.m. So the following requirements are found in Article 13, Amendment Section 100.H.1-17. These are the golden rules. Feel free to interrupt at any time if you would like. These golden rules are going to be very similar to the previous golden rules that you saw. I will note that black is the question that's asked of the golden rules, purple is my answer. If you see green, it's because when they switched it from R4 to R2, that answer changed. And so I marked it as green so you can see it, how it changed from the R4 to R2. But what are the existing uses in their character and condition on subject property in the surrounding neighborhoods? So the subject property is farming, ranch operation with improvements. The land use to the east is farming, ranch operation with improvements and duplexes. To the south, the land use is single-family residence detached and farming, ranch land with no improvements. To the west, the land use is single-family residence detached. To the north, the land use is farming, ranch land with no improvements. What is the current zoning of the subject property and that is surrounding neighborhood in relation to the request? The subject property is zoned R1, single-family residential. The land use to the east is zoned R2, two-family residential, and RR, rural residential, which is a county classification. To the south, the land is zoned R4, high-density residential, and R1, single-family residential. To the west, the land use is zoned R1, single-family residential, and to the north, the land use is RR, which is rural residential. Is the length of time the subject property has remained undeveloped vacant as zoned factor in these considerations? So no property was county with horses and the original property owner passed and the land went up for auction. So it was in the county before it was annexed and became under our regulatory authority. Would the request correct an error in the application of these regulations? So no. Land was not governed by the city prior to these rezonings and annexation. Is the request caused by change of conditions available to the subject property, and if so, what is the nature and significance of such change or changing conditions? So yes, Goddard has experienced high residential growth and housing of all types and all income brackets has become apparent. Due to adequate sewage disposal, water supply, and all other necessary public facilities, including street access, exist or can they be provided to serve the use that would be permitted in the subject property. So yes, sewer and water and street are all readily available. This is on the northeast corner of 183rd and Maple. Any additional infrastructure will be brought in through the petition process through special assessments on their property. Would the subject property be needed to be platted or replatted or new dedications made for right-of-way easements and access control or building setback lines? So yes, the land is unplatted and we would have to go through the platting process after the zoning process. Would a screening plan be necessary for existing or potential uses in the subject property? So I marked it as green because originally when we were talking about R4, there was potential for triplexes and quadplexes, which is defined as multifamily, so screening would be necessary. But when they do R2, it drops down to one family and two family only, so screening is not necessary because our regulations only require for 3 units or greater. Is suitable vacant land or buildings available or not available for development? It currently has the same zoning as requested. So R4 accounts for about 2.4 of all zoned acres, roughly 77.7 for existing acres, and then for R2, it's roughly about 33-55% around that area. If the request is for the business or industrial uses, are such uses needed to provide more services and employment opportunities, and so does not apply, is it residential? Yes, this is to regulate to restrict the height, number, and stories, the size of buildings and structures, including the distance from any lot line, street, right of way, the percentage of each lot that may be occupied by buildings and other structures, the size of yards. To protect property and historical values and to conserve energy and natural resources, to provide for adequate light, air, and acceptable noise levels, to avoid undue concentration of population, vehicular traffic, to prevent overcrowding of use of land or public facilities, to facilitate adequate provisions of transportation, water supply, sewage disposal, schools, parks, and other public improvements, to provide adequate public notice on proposed changes in these regulations, zoning maps, and an opportunity to be heard on such as zoning matters, to establish and provide procedures for the Board of Zoning Appeals to consider appeals, variances, conditional uses, and exceptions, and to implement the goals, policies, and proposals of the comprehensive plan for the zoning jurisdiction. So staff believes that this development is in conformance with the intent and purpose of the subdivision regulations. So, is the subject property suitable for the use to the current zoning to which it has been restricted? So perhaps R1 does not allow for multifamily, but does allow for duplexes as a conditional use. So R2 will allow for duplexes as proposed. It would just have to go through a conditional use for each lot. So R2 does allow for duplexes, and R1 does allow for duplexes, but you have to get a conditional use permit if it remains R1. To an extent, with the rule restrictions, i.e. the approval of the zoning request detrimental effect on the properties in the neighborhood, so the introduction of additional cars can create issues on Maple for traffic during peak traffic times, as mentioned during citizens' comments. Obviously, if you introduce more housing units, typically we see about 2 cars per dwelling unit, so that would increase the amount of cars that's put on 183rd and the amount of cars on Maple and 167. Would the request be consistent with the purpose of zoning district classification and intent and purpose of these regulations? So this district is established to permit medium density 2-family dwelling units with both public sewage and water supply and to allow certain community facilities. It is not intended generally for single-family residential use except as incidental to the area. So under Article 1.101, the purpose of these regulations intended to serve the following: promote public health, safety, morals, comfort, and welfare, protect without control, aesthetics, and redevelopment of new development. So staff does believe this to be in conformance with the zoning district purpose. Number 14, is requested conformance with the comprehensive plan as to further enhance the implementation of the plan. So page 16 of the comprehensive plan has a goal to promote continued residential development, to enlarge the tax base, and strengthen the municipal capacity to provide quality public facilities. Page 17 of the comprehensive plan outlines housing objectives to include providing for multifamily dwellings, retirement housing, and other specialized housing as required to meet the needs of defined user groups within the community. Page 60 of the comprehensive plan shows the future land use map in this area's future residential development. So what is the nature of support opposition to the request? So general support comes with desire to increase the tax base of the city as well as diversify the housing stock, provide housing for seniors for different income brackets. General opposition comes with desire to see state relatively change its land use composition of single-family detached housing. Is there any information, are there recommendations of this request available for professional persons or persons with related expertise which would be helpful in this evaluation? So residential development of all sorts provides much needed tax to the city's long-term maintenance costs. Static cities or shrinking cities have to wrestle with the demand of existing services and the cost of those services over time. Diversified cities can spread the cost of those services over more people such that increased service costs are not carried by the same people over a long period of time. So by comparison, does a relative gain to the public health, safety, or general welfare outweigh the loss of property value or the hardship imposed upon the applicant by not approving the request? So this development is for residential use and does not pose a serious threat to health, safety, or welfare. Typical arguments against rezoning for higher use and common answers. And this is something that's come up before, where planning commissioners have asked me to address some of these common answers and questions and concerns. So it will decrease property value. So the appraised value of the property does not look at duplexes or multifamily for determining value. It looks at similar properties within the neighborhood or, if necessary, outside the neighborhood for comparison. So the county has 3 parts. It looks at what's called bricks and sticks. So if they take your property and tear it down and build it back up, what's the cost of that property with modern day costs? Number 2, they look at cost comparisons. So they take your neighborhood code. So every neighborhood, for example, St. Andrews or Spring Hill or Elkridge or any other development has a neighborhood code assigned to it. They'll take houses within that neighborhood code and compare it to your property. And then they'll say if they can't find a comparable property, they'll reach outside that neighborhood code to other existing neighborhoods of a similar composition. And then they do what's called a multivariate regression analysis, which I don't need to go into details about, but basically it takes evaluation of different factors over time to make a determination of value, and then they take those 3 and they average it and they say this is your property, this is your property value. So it has nowhere in those criteria does it say what is the proximity of your property in relation to a duplex. They will overrun the school district and decrease the quality of the school. So new residential developments do increase school attendance, but this is something the school districts will have to contend with by issuing bonds to add additional buildings and classrooms. So as cities grow over time, school districts by proximity also have to grow over time, and so they'll issue bonds like the one that's going to be coming up to add additional classrooms. So this is just a healthy part of growth, and this is something that school districts, of course, will have to contend with over time, as you see coming up with the school bond issue. Renters who the fact of society are transient and do not engage in the community. So it is often the case that individuals who are unable to afford a home in the moment will rent in the general area where they will want to eventually buy a house. It is not a serious consideration that if someone is renting that they will not attend fall festival or national night out or engage in social activities. So there's no reason to say this just because someone is renting a property that they will not actually engage in any social events that the city would be hosting. The road should be approved before the development goes in. So roads require significant cost to install or upgrade. A marginal increase in traffic is not justification for the expense when the traffic count is less than several thousand cars per day on average. So as cities grow and developments grow in proximity to the streets and the roads, and cars tend to, start using those roads as to be expected, the city will then modify it as needed. So basically, as more and more cars tend to get on the road, you start seeing queuing and congestion issues, then the improvement to the road happens. You don't improve a road or increase the quality of a road when there's not a lot of traffic on it. You don't pave a county road to the middle of nowhere. You don't build a bridge to nowhere. So that's the whole point, is that first you have the demand and then you provide the supply. Click. Okay, questions related to the validity of senior communities as it pertains to the legal authority. So, the Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968, which prohibits discrimination on obtaining housing based upon certain criteria, one of them being familial status, which is a prohibition on discrimination in housing against families with children under 18. In 1995, the Housing for Older Persons Act was passed, which allowed a developer to build communities that are specifically tailored to seniors, allowing and restrict housing for those 55 and over. In order to comply with the HOPA, which is the Housing for Older Persons Act, a development must have 80% of users be exclusively for those over 55. These communities tend to have services and events tailored to those who are over 55, such that they receive clubhouses that have events for seniors instead of playgrounds for younger families. A developer might say they are building a community, and we want to make that distinction, The developer might say they're building a community that seniors could live in, which one must then make a distinction from a community that's being built almost exclusively for seniors under the Housing for Older Persons Act. So in this particular case, we're talking about a development that's built under the Housing for Older Persons Act. So sometimes people will say, didn't that one developer once upon a time say that this is going to be a senior community? And you have to make that distinction, that is he building houses that a senior could live in versus this is a community for housing almost exclusively for seniors. And so under the Housing for Older Persons Act of 1995, you can build a community exclusively for 55 and over if 80% of the units are housing people who are 55 and over. So in this case, they are creating a housing community for people 55 and over. And so it's at 183rd Maple, and you can see the general layout over here. There's going to be 172 units. 2 of them will be single family, which are these 2 over here. This is the FEMA floodplain, so they'll be detaining that. You're going to have 85 duplexes in this layout over here. I know you're looking on your side because this is north. So it is recommended that the Planning Commission have the Planning Commission chair both open the public hearing and receive comments, close the public hearing, and then approve the rezoning application case number zone 25-2. So I do have a developer here who will present a little bit of a slideshow to you guys and answer any questions. But before I have him do that, I would like the chair to go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Okay, we'll open up the public hearing.
Very good. Anybody at this point may speak on the matter? And after you speak, feel free, first and last name, and we'll have it go.
Good evening. Paul Jonas, 318 North 183rd Street, Goddard, Kansas. I own the property just to the north of that. I think I spoke last time I was here, a lot of concerns about the creek and the floodplain and how sensitive that area is to that. Still the same concerns. Actually, it was the first time I did see a plat of what was promised. So again, like I said, we were told by the developer that it was going to be a single, for seniors, which I don't have a problem with. It's just how we're going to buffer it between the other neighborhoods, and we were talking about single-family residences as the buffer between it. Of course, I had no plat to go see. So again, I think to me, I think it's a little backwards. You approve the rezoning before you know what goes in it, and then if it's approved, then they can do what they want. But it is what it is. I just also wanted to note again is the issues you're going to have with 183rd Street. And I noted that since Elk Ridge came in, I'm not saying Elk Ridge did anything wrong, but there is about 4 or 5 different places where it floods across 180th Street today, because I see the water as it comes downstream. 2nd Street and 183rd Street typically sits underwater because it backs all the way up to the north. Again, so just all I'm going to try to say is I know when you do these zonings, right, the developer only has to address the area within inside the areas that he's developing. But I do ask you all to be very considerate with the developer of what happens downstream to us. Saw the record height on the floodplain last year, about 4.5 feet above the surface. So again, I ask you just be considerate of what happens downstream. And at some point in time, maybe it's not the minimum we approve, but please take it in heart and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amanda Treadwell. I am the acting volunteer director of the Goddard Senior Center. I'm also the chairperson for the Goddard Senior Citizen Advisory Board. So I'm here to speak on specific data and results from a survey that I did at the end of 2024 regarding our seniors. We currently have 500 seniors that are members of the Goddard Senior Center currently, and that continues to grow. We did do a survey at the end of last year, which at that point we had around 300 seniors, and over 100 of them participated in the survey. That survey included transportation portion and a housing portion. So I want to share some data with you regarding our seniors, because this is specifically what they're asking for. So in the survey results, we asked about income levels. So between the income levels of 3,000 to 4,000 plus, over 50% of those seniors that filled out the survey make 3,000 or more. So it does support that there is seniors that can't afford this particular housing. And this was based off of one senior's income. So if there was a hospital of 2, then that's going to be more. The additional survey was, what are the most important factors when considering housing needs? Overall, affordability was number 1. Number 2 was safety and security. Number 3 was the proximity of family and friends. And number 4 was proximity to public services. 5 was accessibility, and 6 was social opportunities. So you can see how they rate what they're looking for in housing and what's the most important factors. Specifically, we asked, do you feel that the current living situation you have now meets the needs now and in the future? Overwhelmingly, that answer was no, and it was an open box for them to leave their response. There were several that would say, we want to move to a senior community. That came up multiple times. Wider doors, and actually accessibility was part of that, which my understanding is this project will include all of that. A lot of them are thinking about downsizing and needing homes, and it kind of leads into the next question, which are, is there any specific concerns that you have about housing currently, and what options are available? And overwhelmingly, it was a lack of senior housing options in Goddard. We have a lot of seniors that want to downsize. They would prefer to stay in Goddard, but right now their only options are the Goddard Senior Apartments or Goddard Senior Homes, which is only income-based, which they're on a 2-year wait list right now. The other option is going to be medical lodges or your Dove Estates or Silver Linings, which is at that level where they have nurses. So that entry level is $7,000 a month. We don't have anything in between. Our seniors don't want to live in a regular duplex community. They want to live in a senior housing community. And so this fills that gap in our Goddard area, as well as hopefully future projects of apartments or such. But I feel like we have to have at least one option of each of those to be able to provide our Goddard residents the option to be able to downsize in Goddard and not move away, because then we're losing more people in our community. So these are actual survey results. I'm happy to share the whole survey with you guys that you can see. All of them put their individual responses of what they wanted and what their challenges were. But overall, I don't want this to be looked at as duplexes, because I'm also against just duplexes in general, but this is a 55 plus community. When looking in town and calling around, all of our 55 plus communities are on wait list right now. So this gives Goddard the option to keep our residents here and gives that option for them. The facilities that the developer has, my understanding is that there was a tour of them, and those are 20-year-old and they look in great condition. It's different when you have a local management company and a local owner that manages them versus somebody out of state, but they take better care of them. The seniors will be forced to move outside of Goddard. I mentioned that, survey results. The amenities, what I really liked about this is they actually have a full-time staff person that's going to provide activities. That's a lot of what we're doing at the senior center, but we're really restricted by facilities and by what we can hold, and that's 500 seniors already, and we're busting out the seams. So this is a great option to provide those services, those activities right there on site, including pickleball. We do pickleball at Sandbox. We have 23 people average every Tuesday that play pickleball. So that's going to fill another need of interest at that senior level. Plus, any of them that they have at the facility that are living there and renting, since it's accessible, then anytime that they have to get on a ladder, they are going to take care of that. So changing light bulbs or doing any of that stuff, yard maintenance, all that's taken care of. That's what our seniors want, and we do not have that right now. So please look at this as a senior community, not just duplexes, because it does fill the needs that our seniors are saying that they are wanting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where did it go?
Stan Chapman, I talked to you earlier. So 183rd, I believe, is controlled by the Township of Attica. And from Maple to Seneca, to Central. Because they're the ones that come and grade it. So I did notice that there's lines down there to see what the traffic flow is on the road right now, to see if there's enough, because like the gentleman before me talked about, when we get a lot of rain, there's places in the field north of Elk Ridge, plus where the pond is that goes over the road. There's several places where it washes it out, and that's been one of the things that people have talked about for a long time, is to get something done with that road, to upgrade it, because there's a lot more traffic on that road now. And just like the gentleman talked about, the traffic at the corner at school time is terrible. And right now, with the construction going on at 183rd and Kellogg, you might as well, if you're trying to get off of 183rd onto Maple, you almost might as well forget it in the morning, because that traffic's just stupid. Because people have to go out of their way to go, instead of being able to go south until they get it open. You know, the street's not made for the kind of traffic that's going across there. Just like Maple right now, there's a lot of traffic on Maple that people haven't thought about. So here you go, you're dumping a whole bunch more houses and vehicles that's gonna dump out on roads that aren't meant to handle it. You know, and the city commission stood up and said they put a moratorium on duplexes. The city council has said that, because there's too many going in right now. You know, so that's something that you have to think about. Thank you.
Anybody else at this time?
Yeah, I would like to speak.
First and last name and your address.
My name's George Lee. I live at 227 North Spruce in Goddard. I also serve as the mayor of Goddard, and I just wanted to clarify that back in October we did consider a moratorium on duplexes. We did not put a moratorium in place at that time. There is no limitation from the council's perspective on duplexes. We are concerned about the numbers like everybody's expressed. But we also realize that when we do build things in this community, they need to be nice things. And I think there was in the article in the paper here, there was a correction to that aspect. So right now, off the top of my head, I can't remember the date of the meeting, but I think it was like September 16th. I think it was at 1 hour and 33 minutes where that vote took place. So if you want to go back and check, you can look. But we did not pass a moratorium on duplexes. There is no moratorium in place. We are concerned about the traffic. We've had traffic studies done. We're looking at a 10-year plan that's going to include things like how we address those intersections, how we move traffic as the community continues to grow. That's part of an overall plan of trying to manage the growth that we have. I will point out one other thing is that Wichita is already annexed across 167th north of Maple, and there is nothing that's going to stop them to continue to move west as they continue to grow. So we can sit still and do nothing, and then we'll be like Eastboro and we'll be surrounded by Wichita, or we can make some efforts to manage this process and try to create the type of community that we all can be proud of. So I just wanted to clarify that point. There is no moratorium on duplexes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okie dokie. I am required to read any letters that are sent to me as the planning commission clerk. So this is from Natalie Bush. She's at 1922 North McCrae Drive. She has a strong opposition to rezoning request for the land parcel located at the northeast corner of 183rd Maple. She said, "Dear Board of Zoning Appeals and City Council, I'm writing to express my strong opposition to the proposed rezoning of the parcel generally located on the northeast corner of 183rd and Maple from R1 to R2. Our community is already struggling to keep up the rapid growth, and this change would only worsen existing challenges. Our schools are already overcrowded, and we are working to pass a bond to build new ones. Adding more high-density housing would put additional strain on the school system that is already stretched too thin. Additionally, our property taxes are increasing substantially, and I am deeply concerned that rezoning this parcel will lead to further financial burdens for current residents as the city struggles to provide adequate infrastructure and services. Beyond school and taxes, we are also facing a severe water shortage. The city is already purchasing water rights from the rural district, yet even this is not enough to support the population growth caused by previously approved housing developments, which contain an excessive number of duplexes. Instead of adding even more high-density housing, our city needs to focus on critical infrastructure improvements, such as new water tower that has been recommended for this very intersection. Our community needs this water tower far more than we need additional duplexes. Additionally, I want to highlight the issue of developer accountability. The parcel of land across Maple was originally proposed as a 55-plus community, but has since been switched to something else entirely. This kind of bait-and-switch development erodes trust and proves that developers do not always follow through on their promises. Our community has been misled before, and we cannot afford to allow it to happen again. Thoughtful, transparent planning should take precedence over rushed approvals that only serve the interests of developers rather than the long-term well-being of our residents. Furthermore, we need to prioritize the development of affordable single-family homes rather than two-family homes that are often priced so high that renting them costs more than a mortgage on a traditional single-family home in our town. Sustainable growth should focus on meeting the needs of current and future residents, not just maximizing density at the expense of infrastructure and quality of life. For these reasons, I strongly urge the Planning Commission City Council to deny this rezoning request. Our community's long-term well-being must come before unchecked development. Thank you for your time and consideration. I appreciate your commitment to making responsible decisions and protect the interests of current and future residents. Natalie Bush. So I have read that from her. And at this point, I will bring up whoever wants to come up, I suppose, from the Schellenberg Development team.
Just real quick, I'll turn it over to Jesse Schellenberg here, Joey Dinicky and KDC agent on behalf of the applicant. Last time we were here, we're going for R4. After some consideration, we were kind of discussing that, we are looking more at the two-family attached product. We had some concerns about some of the bulk regulations, so that's why we were originally going for that R4. But after kind of looking at the layout, as you can see, we do have a plat that started that we're going to kind of submit here pending approval of the zoning. We're thinking the bulk regulations, some of the side backs will be able to adhere with that R2, and we'll be able to come back with the plat with some of those setbacks and some of those regulations in that R2. Just quickly on drainage, we'll kind of discuss it at platting, but we are looking at it at this time. Like I mentioned last time, we are not going to affect that floodplain there. That's going to be a big buffer actually to the west for those residential lots as well. But we will submit a full drainage report. It'll get approved by the city of Goddard, and they'll be able to comment on that at that time. But with that, I'll have Jesse come up. He's got a presentation.
Yes, Jesse Schellenberg with Schellenberg Development Company. Boy, I feel like I don't have a whole lot to add after Amanda covered a lot of things here, but we've just got kind of a little presentation to kind of explain a little more about what our product is. I know some of you guys have been out at the last showing out at Villas at Prestwick there in Goddard, and so some of this will be a little repeat, but just kind of give a little presentation about what our product is. I think a big misconception a little bit is just what the most important part of what we offer is creating a lifestyle for our 55 plus. A lot of it does start with our clubhouse. This becomes a big meeting area where we have many different events, potluck dinners, birthday parties. It gets used, I'd say at least three times a week by our residents. On our next one, we'll be offering a pickleball court. Again, this is what is in Bel Air, but we'll have pool, workout room, and all this is just included with the rent with our residents. And typically, again, this is our third community that we've built, and like the timing of our clubhouse, we always do like in the first phase. And so we don't have that time exactly, but I would say after the first handful of buildings are done, then we would start the clubhouse. And these are just some of the pictures from our Christmas parties, our birthday parties, grilling parties, just the different events that we do hold out there. And that is one thing that does set us apart. We do build quality stuff. We had started in Arbor Creek, I believe 2 to 3 years ago. And that's kind of when we first started our relationship with you guys. And I like to say that with our amenities and stuff that we do build quality, and you can see that in our product. Again, just some more pictures. This just gives you an example of kind of what our floor plan is. Majority, and we'll know more as kind of platting and some of this begins. They are more so slab on grades. We may have some basements. Majority of ours will be 1,200 square feet. We are looking at kind of a second option where it's a little smaller. All of these are 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. And so we also have like, we call it secure storage, where it's, is a full concrete room. And so that offers for, you know, there's bad weather, or stuff for our residents. But our other one that will be just a little smaller, it would be like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, single car garage that just kind of opens it for maybe there's widows or just offers, you know, another product. And that wouldn't vary whether it's smaller or this size unit. The quality and everything that is part of that stays the same. And included in this, you have, you know, appliances that we take care of. Like Amanda said, anything that requires getting on a ladder, we take care of. Exterior mowing, and even in our landscaping design, we take into consideration buildings surrounding us, the location of trees. We sod everything so you have that immediate gratification. We do spring and fall cleanup where we replace shrubs or, you know, fluff the beds or keep it looking fresh and nice throughout the year. And again, the looks of these is what we would be bringing to Goddard. It's a good, clean, fresh look. And we even, exterior painting, we have it to where, you know, roughly it's about 8 years that we will paint exteriors or things that start to look a little rough. We do keep that. We don't just bleed things out to not have to do deferred maintenance or those type of items. So we want things to look good, longevity. All of our stuff, you know, we typically sit and hold. And so, again, we want it, our name's on it, our name's on the construction. Here we've got our construction people, the engineering company, the leasing. So we got our whole team here that we can answer any questions that we need. We also, on this, we will be selling some of these, and it would all be under the same regulation. You know, even though you can have 80%, has to be 55 plus. Ours are 100%, you have to be 55 plus. And so that goes into other different things. And here's kind of a list of some of our amenities that included with the units and just like with the clubhouse and some of that. But one thing I need to make clear that on the units that we would sell, it would only be a certain amount. It would be part of an association that takes care of the grounds, takes care of everything the exact same as all the other units. You wouldn't be able to see it any different from the other units that we would rent out. And they would fall under the exact same guidelines. It would have to be 55 plus. There'd be no subleasing. There would be no anything like that. So it would be tight restrictions on that. Like Amanda said, you know, a big thing, I think that in some areas that kind of gives a bad taste in people's mouths is we are locally owned and locally operated. So we have developments here, we're here frequently, we hear complaints, we work with the city. So I think that's something that does set us apart versus areas that's owned by people in Texas or California. So that makes a big difference. Amanda kind of touched base on some of this data regarding 55 plus, like the growth on some of that, so I won't, hit on that. Like she was saying that just here in Goddard, this gives you an example of just the rent rates that are here, and here the niche that we're kind of trying to hit with our price market, and this would deter residents from leaving Goddard because there's just not this option here, and we view this as filling that gap of what Goddard needs. A couple other things. I do hear that it's going to affect school districts, and traffic is a big one. With our age group, they're not going to work. Most of them are going to work at 8 in the morning, coming back at 5. It's a different clientele, so I don't think you're going to see that big traffic impact that's being talked about. I think that is everything. Any questions?
Just curious, why choose to sell some if you're going to keep the restrictions identical to what you would do?
There's just the market. There are still some people that want to own, just not have to take care of their property. They can go travel. So it just opens that up for that little bit of that market that people are wanting to still own with less maintenance stuff.
So then when you sell some of those, I'm assuming like the same covenants that kind of restrict them, those can't be bypassed by succession.
Correct. Yep. There would be like in the covenants and those things that would hold it tight to that.
Okay.
Assuming this gets approved, what's your time frame? I mean, how soon, what's your time frames for going through design and starting construction?
You have it updated. I know before, I think roughly streets were going to be completed by the end of the year. Now some of this stuff says back, so maybe
I think we're set back
a month. So February, January, February, when streets will be completed. If we can do it sooner, we'll do it sooner.
Thank you. Yes, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get to touch on it, and I thought he would touch on it here, but just to kind of give you some population information. So in the Goddard city limits, there's 1,073 senior citizens that are 55 plus in our city limits. When you look at the Goddard School District, it doesn't let me break it down for 55, it just has 50 and older. So if you look at 50 and older, meaning that those 50-year-olds to 55 or 60 that will be 55 in the next 5 years, we'll have 9,728 seniors that are in our Goddard School District within the next 5 years. So that's a lot of seniors that are 55 or older. So that's why when you look at the population and you look at the seniors that we currently already have, that's why I say that this fills that gap. So I just wanted to give you that data, because that didn't get to go over on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else at this time? Seeing none, Mr. Chair, you can close the public hearing.
All right, we'll close the public hearing.
Very good. So financially, there is small publication cost for the public hearing and ordinance after consideration of the City Council, and this legally approved as form. Once again, it is recommended that the Planning Commission approve the rezoning application case in the zone 25-2, so 25-2. That's the case right now, and Planning Commission can deliberate.
When we met last month, there was talk about potentially paving part of 183rd.
Yes.
Is that still?
Yes, we're in communication right now with the engineering firm and developer to pave up to the west entrance of that development. So right now, we can go back and look at it. So we will probably force them to pave up to this section right over here. So that would be the west entrance for them. At some point, as mentioned, this is owned by the county, and so our 2 roads are typically owned and managed by the county, and then local roads are owned and managed by the township, and you have residents that actually dump onto them. So we'll be working with Sedgwick County for the continuation of this as we continue to grow north on 183rd, and we'll slowly annex that road and continue to pave it and manage it and maintain it as we move forward. So there'll be some consideration for how much of 183rd we want to annex, and we'll take that under advisement and move forward from that point on. But we will usually typically require them to pave up to the entry point of their development.
Who or when makes that decision? Is that something that comes up during the plating, or?
Yes, we can consider it during plating. We can consider it at any point really after the fact. Usually the county reminds us that they don't want to maintain their own roads, and so then they force us to annex the roads as we move forward. So county, they always at some point just tend to knock on our door and say, hey, we want you guys to annex these arterial roads because our costs have greatly exceeded the amount of infrastructure that we have, and so we want you guys to annex. So At some point, we'll consider how much of the road we want to annex, and that will be a deliberation internally with city staff, and then consideration with the city administrator and city council about how much of that road we want to annex and how far. But we also have to talk to the county.
You good? Answer all your questions? Good. You ready?
All this,
Looking for a motion?
I'll move to approve the rezoning application case zone dash 5-2.
25-2, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, 25.
Thank you, that's a typo on my part.
I'll make a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, very good. 6-0, no opposition. Okay, unanimous, thank you very much. You guys are welcome to stay for the rest of the night, or if not, then have a good one. So this is G, old business, there is none. H, new business. This is H1. This is the preliminary plat for the Maple Tree development. So, quick background, Baughman Company has submitted a plat application for the Maple Tree development off of 199th and Maple on the southwest corner. The rezoning for this development was considered on July 8th of 2024 with case number zone 24-3 and approved by the Planning Commission. City Council approved the zoning on July 15th of 2024. Plating needs to be considered first by the Planning Commission, and the final plat goes before the City Council for final approval. Planning Commission is reviewing the preliminary plat for the Maple Tree development. There's 88 total lots, 9 lots for twin homes, which are lots 24 to 32 block B, 24 lots for duplexes, lots 33 to 56 block B, 55 lots for single family detached, with lots 123 block B, lots 133 block A. Zoning was approved as R2, Reserve A is a detention pond for the site to manage stormwater. So that blue definitely washed out, but there's the reserve for the stormwater. We're going to have R2 for the whole thing, but right now the duplexes over here, twin homes over here, and single family are going to be along these areas, most of the exterior. Financially run, the agreement is approved as form. It is recommended the Planning Commission approve the preliminary plat for the Maple Tree development. I do believe we have Baughman here. Wave your hand, don't be shy. There he is. Baughman is right there, so we do have the agent for the applicant. So if you guys do have any questions for Baughman, they are available.
Reserve A, is that meant to be a pond or a storm?
Detention, or, I always get those mixed up, so I apologize. Retention versus detention pond, I believe. Tina, correct me, which one is it, please?
It depends on if it holds water or if it lets it absorb into the soil. That's your determining factor.
That is a determining factor, so it's gonna be a wet pond,
So if it's holding it, then it's a detention pond.
It is a detention pond. Thank you, Tina.
Is Maple Street paved all the way past here?
Yes. Maple Street's paved all the way to, actually, let's go back on one. I think Maple Street's paved all the way, how far is Maple Street paved? That's about right. Sounds accurate.
250? I had two choices.
That's a good guess.
What was that ratio again on the single to the twin home?
This hasn't changed from when we saw an initial look at this.
No, this is the same layout as when the zoning passed in 2024.
questions? Comments? I think we need a motion for the move forward.
I'll make a motion to approve preliminary plat with the redevelopment.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. 5-1. And so we financially legally approved this form and the motion was made. Number 2 would be final plat for the maple tree, so they want to approve these concurrently. So you're going to be looking at the same thing. This is just the final plat. Boston Company has submitted it. Rezoning was approved. Council needs to approve it. 55 lots. Single family, settlement is 88 total. This is the final plat.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for the Maple Tree development.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes 5-1. This is H3. This is a preliminary replat for the Goddard Trails End Second Edition. So Garber has submitted an application for a replat of the Goddard Trails End development. The original plat had a section, lots 3 through 43 of Block 3, amounting to 35 lots that the developer would like to develop into duplexes. However, the developer signed a restrictive covenant limiting the number of duplexes to 80 duplexes or 40, whichever was less, of the development. And this was a requirement of the rezoning process. The developer asked City Council to rescind the limitation on duplexes, which was denied, so the developer would like to add additional single-family lots into the next phase. The new plat would add additional 4 lots, totaling 39 for the new second edition. Replats are treated just like a regular plat, with a preliminary and a final plat. The final replat needs to go before the City Council for final consideration. So, the Planning Commission is reviewing the preliminary replat for the Goddard Trails End Second Edition. The new plat is 39 lots. So originally it was 35, they're introducing 39. Zoning is R2, land use is single family. Detention pond can adequately carry the additional lots, according to Garber. So Goddard Trails End Second Edition. This is the area that they're replatting. The layout is generally the same, just the introduction of 4 additional lots, all single family in this area.
So how did they take the same area and get 4 more lots out of it? Did they make a lot smaller?
Exactly. They just shaved about 10 feet off a couple lots, and then you can slap it into a brand new lot. And so then you have some additional lots. But it's, like as mentioned, we're just trimming some of it, and then you're able to reintroduce it through the engineering process and then platting, and then you have to do the replatting to introduce it, and then here we are. So you have 4 additional lots. I believe Garber is here as well, agent for the applicant somewhere. Don't be shy, they're right behind me. So you'll notice that we did have Baughman, Garber, and MKC in the room at the same time, so they will fight for your amusement at some point. But Garber is here, agent for the applicant. If you guys do have any engineering questions, I will gladly recuse myself from answering those questions and defer to Garber.
So what will the new percentage be? I know that the max is 40%. With this new plat, what?
I have to do some. You're gonna hurt my head.
And you have a calculator in your back pocket.
Yeah, it's on my phone. So originally I think there was 205. Do you know? So I don't have to. I think the original was 205 lots. So now they have 209. So we'll just say that's your new denominator. So let's say they're at 38% duplexes. So they dropped from 40 to 38. question?
I'd make a motion we approve the replat Goddard Trails in second edition.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes 5-1. This is H4. This is the final replat of Goddard Trails in second edition. So it's going to be the same thing. This is the final plat. Same criteria. Final plats go before City Council for final consideration. After they go before City Council, then they are taken to the county and they get signatures on a Mylar and they bring the Mylar over and Mr. Chair will sign that Mylar and I will sign the Mylar and the Mayor will sign the Mylar and then it'll get recorded.
I'll make a motion to approve the final replat for Goddard Trails Editions, second edition.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Thank you very much. 5-1, motion passes. This is H.5. This is a site plan for the Bridger at Maple Clubhouse. So Baughman Company has submitted a site plan application for the Bridger at Maple Clubhouse. Site plans are typically approved by the Planning Commission with the architecture and engineering approved by the Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department, or MABCD. Once approved by the Planning Commission and MABCD, a general contractor can pull a building permit to start construction. Planning Commission is reviewing the site plan for the Bridger at Maple Clubhouse. The zoning is R2. The land use is a clubhouse and pool. Gross floor area is 1,800. Gross track area is 173,000. Percent of the lot coverage is 0.010. There's about 10 parking spots of 1 ADA. Here is a review and an overlay of what the clubhouse looks like. You have a complete site plan package included. And we do have Baughman once again here as an agent for the applicant, if you do have any questions for Baughman.
There's a pool around the fence or there's a fence around the pool.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a fence around maybe the back patio as well. What are the, has it been decided what the fence is going to be made out of or what that fence is going to consist of?
Chris Rose with Baughman Company, agent for the applicant. I'm not 100% sure. I was going through this. I did not work on these plans, so I apologize. I'd assume everything that I've ever seen has always been some sort of decorative fence, wire, or whatever you want to call it nowadays. I don't know why they would put any kind of wood fence up or solid fencing up there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the only note that's on here says 5-foot pool fence shall conform to local codes for safety and access.
motion to approve the site plan for the Bridger at Maple Clubhouse.
All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Need a second?
Sure.
Who's second?
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, 6-0, motion passes. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay the rest of the night, or if not.
I got a motor rifle.
Okay. This is H.6. This is an administrative review of site plan for an otter penguin exhibit. So B&B Design submitted a site plan for an addition to the otter penguin exhibit at Tanganyika Wildlife Park. All commercial new buildings and additions must submit a site plan. Under some circumstances, the community level director, being myself, will review site plans internally to expedite the process if he deems it appropriate. The building is an addition to an existing building and is surrounded by the park such that the potential urban impact is minimal. At that point, I would have made a decision to inform basically inform the planning commission that I'll be reviewing it administratively under the authority given to me under Article 11.102.b, and I'm just going to be reviewing this small addition to the otter penguin exhibit at Tanganyika internally to help them out with the process and review. That being said, this is the current otter. Actually, there's sloths over here too, so don't want to discriminate against sloths. There's sloths over here. There's otters and penguins, and I think an albino alligator as well. But they're going to add this addition over here. So I go to Tanganyika a lot. So this is the addition to the otter and penguin exhibit. As I mentioned, it's an addition to the commercial building. That's one reviewed internally, and it's surrounded by the park, so the urban impact is pretty much non-existent since the park surrounds it. Financially and legally approved as formed, is recommended the planning commission just receive and file note that I'll be reviewing an otter and penguin exhibit. If you have any questions related to that, feel free to call me at any time, or you can stop in my office and take a gander at it. H7, this is a site plan review modification. So periodically, the city should review its zoning and subdivision regulations, see if there are any changes that could be made to improve the quality or expediency of development in Goddard. City staff has reviewed the site plan many times under Article 11 and has come up with some proposed changes that are believed to be reasonable. The planning commission can propose additional changes or reject any of the proposed changes or accept the changes as presented. The final decision is made before the city council. So the planning commission is reviewing the proposed changes to subdivision regulations as it pertains to the site plan criteria on Article 11. Site plans are often tentative in nature, as the architects and developers don't know exactly what all the elements of the projects will be. Site plans are often submitted with contractors sending in additional information after the initial submission as they obtain contract work or survey work. Site plans have two parts, an exterior site plan and an interior site plan. Planning commission will review the exterior site plan, and MABCD will review the interior site plan. Removing the additional requirements of landscaping screening without removing the ability for the planning commission to ask to see additional landscaping and screening if they want those provisions. Remove leftover language as it pertains to Channel 7 of the news, and remove any additional language as pertains to the design review committee. So these are just some of the things that I'm proposing to be removed. I don't know when we've ever used Channel 7, so I just wanted to throw that out there, but it's still in the subdivision regs, so I figure we should probably remove it. Back in 2019, we did remove the design review committee, but there's still some residual language that needs to be removed that references the design review committee. I've also moved a lot of additional information off the site plan because I want to make it as simplified as possible, still allowing the planning commission to add additional stuff as they see fit if they wanted to see any additional information. This is criteria that you actually see presented on the site plan. I left the ones that I like to see in black, the ones I want to remove are red, the ones that have additional information I added green to it. So scale of north arrow, the address of the site, usually I address it after the fact, so that's why asking for the address on the front end seems a little bit erroneous. Proposed zoning district, we know what the zoning would be. Land use designation, we already know what the land use designation would be based on what the applicant has submitted on the application we received in the form that they required. These are going to stay the same: building heights, percent of lot coverage, gross track area, gross floor area of each building, all property and street pavement lines, existing proposed contours. This comes up a lot because they'll show proposed contours and then they'll modify it as necessary, so I feel like, what's the point? Yards and building setback lines, fire lane easements, and this comes up a lot. They're like, what are fire lane easements? Fire lane easements, they say usually 20 feet wide, so they just leave it like that, and you're like, what's a fire lane easement? Well, a fire lane easement's only if you don't have direct access to the site itself. The fire department usually requires two, so if you have only one access point, then you might need a fire lane easement for another access point if that one access point is shut out. If that's the case, then you should outline on the site plan where that second fire lane easement is, and so then I add it if necessary, because usually you have two ways in and out of a development, so I thought I should throw that out there. Sidewalks and pedestrian ways, I like those. Utility easements and lines, I like those. Stormwater structures, including possible retention, detention. Okay, and facilities and all the easements reserved. Vision triangles, I don't like those. Boundary and elevations, 100-year floodplain if applicable. Building and minimum pad elevations, I like those. If parking is involved, obviously. Proposed ingress and egress to the site, including on-site parking areas, I like those. Location of all existing isolated trees, I don't really like those. And so existing landscaping that we retained and proposed. Most of Kansas is flat, it's crabgrass, and so anyway, like the trees don't, identifying trees that are going to be removed anyway, I just think, I'm not 100% sure why that would be relevant. Location of all existing to remain and proposed buildings on the site. Most of the sites are, I mean, identifying a site that you're going to destroy a building on anyway, I'm not sure if we really want that or not. We did call that out on the Casey's one because they had House of Blues, and so they did identify that they were going to remove House of Blues, which I thought was obvious, but I mean, like I said, it's up to you guys if you want to still see those. Location of all existing remaining proposed lighting standards, complete with routing of electrical supply and ISO foot candle diagram. I will mention that Ryan Track, who he's now employed with the city, he came from Valley Center, he used to do planning and zoning over there. He said he wanted to still see that. I thought I would like to see it as necessary because in some cases they don't have any of the Cobra lights. All the lights are on the side of the building anyway. They're not proposing any lights. So I thought perhaps I don't put it on there, but if we wanted to see that because we thought there might be an impact from a commercial building on the surrounding residential area, then we could require that of them. So that's just something we want to put. And remember, all these things I marked off, you guys can say if you want to keep it, just say you want to keep it. Or if you want to say you wanted to see it, you still could ask to see it if somebody's submitted a site plan. Location of sites of all existing proposed freestanding signs. I definitely want to see that because we want to make sure that they still have the monument signs as is required by our sign regulations. Financially run legally approved as a form. It is recommended the planning commission approve the changes that I proposed to subdivision regulations as it pertains to Article 11. All of the changes would have to, of course, be finalized by City Council at the next available council meeting. But as mentioned, this item is particularly interesting to Commissioner Parks, so feel free to add, subtract, keep as much as you want.
And I personally feel that the site lighting diagram is a good thing to have. I would prefer to keep that just for the reason you mentioned.
Very good.
So if we make the statement, if necessary, how does that help the applicant? How does that hinder the applicant? I mean, is there any reason to make it stated as if necessary?
No,
I'm just going to make that determination.
I think that, so maybe this is just for me, but when I first started, I was like, what's a fire lane easement? So I was going back and forth and we kept talking about it. So it was almost like, do I require them to write fire lane easement on the road to let them know that the fire lane easement has been identified as the road? And so then I thought, well, maybe I should put it necessary. And I thought if somebody's interpreting this in the future, maybe they'll say, what's if necessary, they can question it. But honestly, it's just a point of reference on how you interpret the code.
And so if we were to look at that on the lighting one as well, like if they don't have the necessary lighting to justify anything, do they just skip over it? Or
Yes, typically, if they're not proposing any, usually we call them Cobra lights, or if they're not proposing any illumination for a parking lot, which is typically, we don't always see that. Camp Allo did, obviously, Casey's did, but small commercial buildings, you know, Brian Legali's storage units, etc., they don't have Cobra lights all the time, so the ISO is not even required because they're not going to have any leakage. It's just going to have lights on the side of it.
So there's nothing they're required to do to say we don't have it, they can just skip it?
Yeah, I would just put not applicable to the site plan. On their development checklist, I say not applicable because they don't have any Cobra lights, but it doesn't, like, we can include it, you know, just to make sure.
Right, I like the thought of including it, I just wanted to know what the applicant was required to do to say they don't need to fill it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you look at the site plan, if they're not proposing it, introducing additional lights, they're freestanding lights, big street lights, then we don't, there's no ISO necessary. Yeah, but it's true, that's a good point that Commissioner Milligan made, is that, you know, if you guys aren't here and I'm not here and somebody else is reading it, they might not even ask to see the ISO, so perhaps we should keep it. And they're, what's an ISO? And then they go Google, what is an isometric lighting metric? And then they go look it up and go, oh, we should probably include this. And so having it on there could trigger it, which is a good idea if you wanted to keep it. Future interpretations, that's good.
So there's a lot struck out. Is anything added or?
No,
Okay.
no, this is more of a reduction.
Okay.
I mean, I added if necessary. If there was that.
In the packet, there's like a section on all these trees and stuff, and there's like a section about,
Landscaping, yeah, landscaping.
well, there's also a section about like, I forget what it's called. Building design and exteriors a little bit.
I left
Is
that
it
in there.
staying, or is it
Mhm.
going?
So landscape, so the trees, they gave a long list of local trees that they thought would be appropriate if you wanted to do landscaping. And they wanted you to call it out if you were proposing a landscaping plan, and I felt like that was somewhat unnecessary because we don't go out and monitor typically if somebody approves a site plan. Let's say the site plan gets implemented and everything else, I'm not gonna go out there and count the number of palm trees that they have or the petunias that they planted. And also ask that it calls out the scientific names, and I'm not gonna go cross-reference all the scientific names that's called out on the site plan either to make sure that it corresponds with what's been planted, because I'm not a botanist and I'm not gonna identify, you know, a red bush sage versus a pine tree sage versus, you know, and they want all those called out, and I thought that seemed a bit much for a landscaping, especially if a lot of people are not proposing living that landscaping, or if the landscaping is somewhat minimal, so I struck that. But the design criteria was specifically added in 2020, 2021, when we talked about rolled metal buildings, and so I left that in there, where that's the requirement for facade. If you have a complete metal building, and the front is touching the street or overlooking the street, and you have a side that has, if it's a corner lot, and you have two sides touching the street, and it's an all-metal building, then we require that a facade be presented to planning commission so that you guys can approve any changes to the facade as it pertains to an all-metal building. So I left that in there.
That's the one comment that I had, just the illumination.
I will add it back in, I think that's a good idea.
Mark, any comments? Not yet. So I don't know if it matters to you, Mike, about, in A, under building construction, Y, under 1, the location and size of existing and proposed freestanding signs is crossed out in our packets. So I don't know if that's how, you left it in up here.
Yeah, I left it in up here. I think originally it was proposed as being removed, and then I wanted to add it back.
Okay, just making sure you have it on yours.
I do want to include that one still.
Okay.
Yes. I thought about, typically you'll see them, so most of the time they're not proposing freestanding signs, but then the bigger ones on the frontage road do, like Starbucks, like Brahms, they will still propose those freestanding signs, and I do want to see them.
Yes.
Sometimes, which I will allow them to be flexible, they'll submit a site plan without the freestanding sign, and then a contractor will submit another site plan to be approved administratively for the freestanding sign once they've identified the contractor that they want to use. And we'll work with them. But Casey's proposed a freestanding sign on that site plan. We saw that it was a pylon sign. We said you can't do that. So they modified it to make it a monument sign. So yeah, I went back and forth on that, but I still want.
I totally agree. I just want to make sure, like I said, it's crossed out.
I
here.
do want to
You have
keep it in
listed
there.
the way you want it, so.
Yes, I do want to keep it in there.
Yep.
If they're not doing a freestanding, they don't have to be freestanding sign if it's just, remodel or something of that nature. If they're doing an addition, you don't need to add an additional monument sign every single time, and I think we have the latitude to consider that, but I do like to see them. I definitely want to see them, because sometimes I feel like they want to assume that they're going to do a pylon sign, and we don't want them to do pylon signs on the furniture, on 54, I should say, so.
Are you retaining screening?
So screening is as necessary, has to be determined, but I took screening off of there simply because typically when they present a screening plan, it's after the fact, as you saw today. They don't know what they're going to screen it with. And so when we say that you need a screening plan, usually we tell them you need a screening plan, and they say, well, can I submit the site plan without the screening plan, and then I can consider it after the fact? And I say yes. Show me what you're screening it with, and they submit it after the fact. So once again, it goes back and forth, and screening is to be determined by me anyway on the article 11, and so I go, do I want you to screen it, do I don't want you to screen it, what kind of screening do we need? So typically, I don't say you need a screening plan, but I want to see your screening layout in terms of how you're going to screen it and what material, and that's usually done administratively because they don't know what they're going to screen it with, they don't know what the fence material is going to be. So they could put something there and change it as long as it's considered conforming. They could switch it to picket if they wanted to. There's nothing against it. They can't switch to chain link for sure, but that's kind of why I kind of go back and forth. Am I going to be stringent on the front end or stringent on the leg? How do we want to deal with that? So we could say, once again, per what Commissioner Milligan said, just say, identify, hey, you need to screen it if it's multifamily or commercial, 3 units or greater. We could say that. But it still says you have to in the subdivision regulations anyway. So, no matter what, if I say no screening necessary on the site plan, that doesn't mean you're not required to screen. It just means I don't necessarily need to see it on the site plan. It means I can see it anytime through any means that I want to see it. It just gives a little more flexibility. Yeah, it doesn't remove that requirement. Okay. It just removes that provision from the site plan. But this is a good question. And if you feel like you want to see it, and you're like, no, I do want to see more materials, I want a table site, you guys can do whatever you want with site plans. I mean, if you're like, I do want to see how exactly you're going to screen it. You could table a site plan and say, I want to see a full screening plan. And that's considered perfectly acceptable. But then again, that's kind of why I reduced all this stuff. But like I said, you guys can add whatever you want to it, or you can see whatever you want. You could ask whatever you want of the developer. So kind of in the future, if you're thinking, well, I'm going to be here a long time, you can still lean on that. But if you felt like all your seats, down the road, who knows if you'll be here in the future, and you want to ensure that the future planning commission might want to see that, then you could ask, as Commissioner Hayden said, just keep it on there in case there's any uncertainty. It definitely doesn't hurt anything.
Everybody had a chance to get through it? If there's no further comments, I think we'll move further.
I'll make the motion to approve the suggested changes with the modification to add in to retain the information about the light plan.
Very good.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you very much. And this is our staff report. So this is City of Goddard Complete Residential Development Listing. I think this is interesting information. There's a lot going on here, but I included it in your agenda, so you guys do have the complete listing. This is everything, residentially speaking. Includes everything that was, everything that is, or everything that could be. No, I'm just kidding about the last part. But anyway, it's include everything that is and everything that's on the books right now. And it's going to have the breakdown. So you'll have, if you see development listed twice, it's because you're going to have multiple land uses under that development, the number of buildings, the number of units, and then we have a multiplier of 3 people per unit. That's typically what I use on average. So the number of people is just simply going to be 3 times the number of units. And then the building phase, so if it's building permits, they'll list a number of permits that have been pulled. If it's at an infrastructure stage, there's not going to be any permits pulled. Entitlement stage, zoning, plating, etc. So you'll see infrastructure stage, meaning that there's like pipes being placed in the ground. Entitlement stage is kind of what you saw today with zoning and plating. And then it's going to have the number of certificate of occupancies under those building permits, and the percentage of permits pulled, and then the percentage that have a certificate of occupancy. And then you'll have a complete breakdown at the very bottom between single family, duplexes, and twin homes, which are lumped together, and then multifamily plus commercial care centers. So you'll have like medical lodge, etc., that have bigger units that are a big group center. And so that's a complete breakdown. If everything is taken into account and we assume that this will be a full build out by 2030, we'll be around 12,423 people, or closer to 13,000 people by 2030. So we just give you some additional information. At this point, we'll move on to item J, planning commissioner comments, but as I said, that full report is in your agenda packet. If you guys have any questions for me, feel free to reach out individually. We can talk about it, and hopefully I can get coffee with you guys as we move forward. But planning commissioner comments.
No comments.
You mentioned Casey's a couple times.
Yes.
How are they?
Good,
on that?
good. Casey's is moving fast, which I'm really happy about. We awarded the contract, which is a low bid, and we had a pre-construction meeting where they are ordering the parts, and we'll see things breaking ground. Actually, Tina, do you want to give a better update on that?
Yeah.
Feel free to come up. And then we'll have to speak publicly.
Yes, we had our pre-conference with NOAC Construction, and they will be starting construction about April 29th. They're waiting on some material approvals, but they're sending all of their structures to Wichita Concrete Pipe. So before they want to start their working day count, they want to have all those structures prepared and delivered. So April 29th.
Very cool.
I just want to say I appreciate the developer's investment in Goddard. I mean, as you showed there with the last slide there of the interest in investing in Goddard, you know, and the various products being offered. I think that's critical as well as we look into the future with our growth plan. And then to second the mayor's comments, you know, I much rather be in the position of controlling what's going to happen instead of being controlled. And if we have the opportunity right now to be in the driver's seat, I don't want to be in the position where, as he mentioned, Wichita's going to start surrounding us, and all of a sudden now we're landlocked, and there's not that option. I think now's the time to invest. Now's the time to offer different products at different price points, attracting different markets of people. You know, all the way from the entry-level home to the senior home, etc., everything in between. Now's the time to do that. I don't want to be stuck in that, again, behind the 8 ball. You know, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, however long it's going to be. Let's be in the driver's seat.
Okay.
I just want to add on to that. I appreciate the Schallenberg team taking the time and the feedback that we had from the previous meeting and making the changes and coming back. But thank you for doing that.
Well, I also wanted to thank all the citizens that came out to speak. I've only been on this commission for a little over a year now. This was by far the hardest decision to make. I know there's a lot of people that feel strongly both ways, and we're all doing our best to keep the city growing and keep things moving.
Any other comments? Well, adjournment will be now, obviously, then May 12th will be the next meeting at 7 p.m. So, Mr. Chair,
All right.
you want?
I'm going to motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.